Audio Jungle.
Good evening everyone and welcome to your favorite talk show, Strategy 101. For today's section on Know More About Your Singapore Stock, we will be analysing Singapore's leading media organisation, the Singapore Press Holdings, and provide a strategic analysis of the corporation. So to find out more about the company's background, we have sent a reporter on the ground to get information for you. Ms. Yang, please.
Hello everyone, we are now in front of the SPH company. SPH was formed on 1st August 1984 through a merger of three organizations. SPH is more than a newspaper publisher which is starting out today. SPH now aims to be Asia's leading media organization, featuring nice and enriching lives across multiple languages and platforms. Their product lines vary from the print, digital, advertising, properties, and broadcasting. In fiscal year 2014, SPH turned in a creditable performance with a net profit of $404.3 million. Back to you, Terence.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. So taking a look at a more in-depth analysis on the operating performance of SPH, the group operating revenue was 1.2 billion for the financial year 2014, which was 2% lower compared to the previous year itself. But most importantly, the key driver of revenue is the newspaper and magazine business, making up close to 61% of the total revenue for the year. Hence today, our analysis will be focused on the core business of SPH, that is the newspaper business. And this comprises of flagship newspaper such as the Straits Times. So one worrying trend from the newspaper business is that advertisement and circulation revenue declined 51.3 million, which was 6.8%, and 9.7 million, which is 5% respectively for the Straits Times compared to the previous year. Moving on, we will begin our analysis by looking at the strategic aspects of the company in the industry level before zooming in onto company level specifics. So to provide us with some valuable insight in the newspaper industry, I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker for today, industry expert Ms. Eileen. Good morning, Ms. Eileen. With over 20 years experience in the newspaper industry, how will you assess the potential for profitability, especially for SPH in this industry?
Good morning, thank you for inviting me over. Let me assess the potential for profitability in the newspaper industry, specifically in point of view of SPH. I'll attempt to use the Porter's 5 forces, a simple but powerful strategic framework on the newspaper industry. Supply power is very low since inputs for newspapers are largely low cost. Furthermore, the newsprint market is highly fragmented, with many private companies supplying the product, making it easily available to source for alternative suppliers with a homogeneous product. Buyer power is relatively high due to low switching costs between different newspapers, price sensitivity of newspapers, and a relatively undifferentiated product in the form of current news. Threats of new entrants is very low since it's difficult to penetrate into the industry due to the high barrier of entry, high initial capital outlay and fixed costs, high required economies of scale, established news distribution channels, and scarcity of human resources. The threat of substitutes is very high due to the increasing prominence of digital news media outlets since the emergence of the information age. Low switching costs allow consumers the convenience to switch to alternative digital news platforms. With established international news providers such as the CNN, New York Times, Daily Mail, Financial Times, and Bloomberg, providing quality news that is readily available online with great convenience and at little to no cost, the threat of digital media as a substitute is increasing. As for the industry rivalry, it's low since there are only two competitors currently in the industry, MediaCorp and SPH. Furthermore, the competitors have unequal market share with SPH taking the lion's share of readership numbers. Also, the products are relatively differentiated with difficulty to challenge for market share due to habitual patterns of news consumers resulting in an established pool of loyal customers. Hence, SPH needs to look to strengthen its position by decreasing the power of its buyers and look to formulate strategies to tackle the increasing threat of substitutes in the digital news platform in order to increase its profitability in the newspaper industry.
Thank you, Ms. Eileen. That was very insightful. So with an understanding of the newspaper industry, We will now move on to some of the Straits Times competencies and potential threats through a SWOT framework, and hopefully they will help shed some light on some of SPH's future strategies. And for that, we have an on-site reporter, Ms. Choi, who is with Mr. Chan, the CEO of SPH, that will share with us some of his insight.
So Mr. Chan, it's a privilege for us to have you here today with us. We are discussing one of SPH Dear Holdings' Straits Times and its strategies into the future. In your opinion, what are some of ST's strengths?
The pleasure is mine. First and foremost, Straits Times enjoys the privileged status of being a local monopoly. With a readership from print and digital of 32%, we are the most read English newspaper in the local scene. However, make no mistake, Straits Times remains committed to delivering the latest news and top quality services to our fellow readers. We have a wide range of niche content to cater to specific audiences, such as business times, and our online sites also offer unique services, such as our acclaimed Straits Times Jobs. Further, ST is also a proud member of the Asia News Network, which enables us to receive the latest regional news in a flash. Last but not least, being part of SPH, we are also privy to a large amount of resources and capital, and this allows us to engage in numerous activities ranging from divesting, R&D, and growth strategies, all to capture any opportunities that arise from changing macroeconomic environments.
Thank you. Can you kindly provide us with some examples of the opportunities?
Sure. In the advent of this technological era, some key consumer trends that have captured our attention are big data, location-based consumption, social networking, and the growing numbers of tech-savvy consumers.
Wow, these opportunities do sound marvelous, but I'm sure that ST does possess some weaknesses and face external threats as well.
Yes, of course. Despite our active efforts to divert our readers to digital platforms in our attempt to connect with the digital age, we are still facing major difficulties, and a large majority of our readers still prefer print copies. This presents a problem as the digital and print products cannibalize each other's profits and poses a hindrance to us in our attempts to consolidate our consumers and deliver holistic value. We have also received complaints that our apps are less user-friendly compared to other news apps, and this is worrying as the media landscape in Singapore is getting more globalized with the advent of technology, and soon we'll find ourselves losing our monopoly position and competing with international newspapers such as the Wall Street Journal and New York Times. And last but not least, our target market in Singapore is facing saturation, and growth has turned stagnant, forcing us to look towards alternate markets locally and globally.
And now we'll head off to what Mr. Chan and his consultant has come up with for ST strategies for the next 2 to 4 years to come.
Thank you, Ms. Choi. I am now here with the Straits Times strategy consultant, Mr. Chia, who will talk about the various strategies that he has come up with in order to improve the competitiveness of the Straits Times. Mr. Chia?
Thank you, Terence. It's great to be here, and now to our strategies. Our strategies will focus on the main issue the Straits Times is currently facing, which is how exactly are they going to increase their media presence in Asia, given their decrease in readership and the increase in competitiveness in the online and international news reporting scene.
So exactly what are these strategies that you speak of?
Our strategies involve a three-pronged approach actually: increasing the newspaper's readership, improving its attractiveness to potential advertisers, and 3, adapting the news that it reports such that it is able to penetrate into the new market overseas. We propose that the international version to report worldwide news with Southeast Asian focus, which we found that particular market to be relatively unsaturated, with only one major rival, which is Singapore-based Channel News Asia. However, in order to accomplish this feat, Straits Times will have to reinvent itself in 3 new areas.
Those are some very interesting ideas that you brought up, Mr. Chia. But how exactly do you suggest the Straits Times implement these ideas then?
Well, it's not that complicated actually. Firstly, Straits Times will have to tailor its content to meet international audiences' expectations. We recommend Straits Times using its 23 worldwide agencies to cover international news in detail instead of partnering or outsourcing it to other news agencies, as this might lead to a problem in reliability or a drop in quality. Next, Straits Times should also focus more on educating rather than reporting. They should conduct more featurettes to educate people, which is also in line with their motto. For example, they should create a series of talks, articles and reports on Singapore's history, since it is SG50 currently, and this would help generate more interest in Straits Times as an educational medium instead of just a source of local news. I would also suggest more in-depth analysis of issues on public policies and social issues.
That's a sound plan that you have there. But what about the distribution method then? This sounds grand, but how will the users access the new version of the Straits Times? We do not exactly have a distribution system that is in place for overseas for the Straits Times, am I right?
Yep. But that is why we will start with an online platform and gradually penetrate into the physical newspaper market overseas.
What about the other stakeholders involved then? Advertisers, for example, make up a very crucial part of a company's revenue. So how exactly do you expect to entice these advertisers to continue working with the Straits Times?
Well, I believe that the most optimal strategy should be to put in place on the online and mobile platform apps and programs that will find out how, when, and where consumers access their media content and develop better tracking systems, which allows for more specific gathering of data. This way, Straits Times can customize their ads to suit the needs and wants of every individual readers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chia. That was indeed very insightful from you.
Thank you.
In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, SPH broad strategy should always be in line with its company's vision, which is to increase its media presence in Asia. To do so, SPH should engage in a three-pronged approach. Firstly, it should increase its value for local readers. Secondly, increase its value for advertisers. And lastly, to expand into the international region. So value for local readers are increased via better app usability and developing niche content. Value for advertisers are improved via better tracking systems and the harvesting of big data from ST's digital platforms. Last but not least, to avoid the saturated local market which potentially faces an increasing competition, ST should begin development of a regional news app with a unique positioning by reporting Southeast Asian-centric news. So these strategies leverage on SPH strength by having a large pool of resources and being part of the ANN. So this concludes our session today, and all the information can be found on the link below. Here, it's been a pleasure being your host today, and thank you everyone for paying attention to Strategy 101. Have a good day. Thank you.